and you don't use as much, so it's a good place to start. So I'm gonna attach this to the wheel head. I've got my bat on there. And sometimes I see it's a little off at the beginning, so I'm just gonna go ahead and push it in the direction it needs to go, just to visually get it centered. Get yourself set up for success. And then water and speed are your friends at the beginning. So add a liberal amount of water and kind of like get your elbows into your hips. If you're sitting down, you can put them on the splash pan. Get into a stance that feels powerful for you. I'm gonna start to activate my fingers, my palms, my core. All this energy comes from my core, and I'm just squeezing in and down. So in and down is my first kind of thought, and then we'll go up and cone. First, you need a nice secure attachment to the bat. So now I'm going to cone. So what I'm doing here is I kind of have 3 points of contact. So I'm pushing in with my meaty palm here at around 6 or 7 o'clock, and my fingers are at the top kind of grabbing it, and my other palm is also pushing in. And I'm gonna start at the very bottom, squeeze in and push up. My thumbs are at the top to catch and recenter that portion of clay at the top. Add a little water if it feels sticky. Sometimes I like to clean up the bottom just so I can see where this pot actually begins and ends. So once you have a cone, you're just gonna go ahead and push it back down. If your cone is like really wobbly, don't worry. When it comes back down, it will become centered, right? So try not to sweat the small stuff. Your left hand is just gonna be on the left side at 9 o'clock. Kind of cradling the clay at the top. Your right hand is gonna come down, and your two hands are gonna work together to push this clay down. My right hand is doing most of the work. I'm kind of leaning on the splash pan for stability. My hands are touching. They're not kind of isolated, you know, just doing their own thing. They're together. And my right hand is doing all the work, pushing down this clay and centering it. So this clay is a little dry, so I didn't take my own advice, but so I'm just gonna center it. I'm gonna do 1 cone. I think that's gonna be enough. You will most likely have to do more than 1 cone if you're using 2 to 3 pounds of clay. So just keep that in mind. Some things you want to think about are how much water are you incorporating. So you need some water at the beginning, but you also, you know, are looking to see how saturated your clay is and all that good stuff. All right, so next we're gonna add these. Try not to get in here, but whatever. Okay. Sorry, video. So I just use a little trim tool, and I'm just gonna kind of trim away some spots where those coils are gonna lay on the clay. So I'm gonna add my coils after I center my piece. You can try doing it before you center your piece. You can just wedge up a whole bunch of different colors and then center it on the wheel. This is just one way to think about marbling your clay. So I'm going to take my green clay and just kind of press it in here and just begin to tear it off where it kind of naturally falls or ends in the center. Does anyone have any questions so far?
The pattern you're making right now obviously doesn't matter, right? Because you're going to spin it anyway, so it doesn't matter how you cut and insert.
Not really. I mean, yes and no. You're like a butterfly, right? And clay has memory, so the clay is going to remember everything you do. And you know, if you were to twist it, like put it on as a spiral, it's going to give you a lot different look than doing these kind of vertical strips of clay. So yeah, I guess I would say yes, it will change the way it looks. So play around, you know. I feel like everything I do in clay is just one big experiment, right? You're just constantly experimenting. I've got a little extra, so I'm just gonna smush it on there.
Are you packing it in really tight?
I am. I'm packing it in pretty tight, and I'm kind of being mindful of how I'm putting it in there, right? I'm trying my best not to incorporate air, right? So I'm getting a nice tight seal like this. So yeah, some things to think about. And when I do this, when I've done this in the past, this part right here really kind of pressing it all into the clay, kind of like when you first step on, you know, start throwing, you're gonna do that downward motion first, just to kind of marry all this clay together. So this will create a Neriage kind of marbling effect as you throw. So we're gonna throw something tall and narrow. So I'm just gonna make sure everything is adhered to the clay. And then I have my kind of hamburger or hockey puck, and now I'm gonna open it. And I'm gonna make a bagel. So my thumbs find the natural center. I start to press down. And I want about 1/4 of an inch at the bottom, maybe a little more. So I'm going to stop the wheel, take my needle tool to the bottom, and with the same hand meet the clay and pull it up. I've got about 1/2 inch. I'm pretty happy with that. I might go down just a hair more. Sometimes when I think about throwing larger or like tall and narrow pieces, I don't like trimming those, so I like to leave less clay at the bottom because I don't want to trim them. But you know, I'm just playing to my strengths, right? I love trimming a cup or a bowl, but like a tall narrow thing, not so much. So now I'm gonna pull this out. I'm gonna widen this opening. So my left hand is cradling the clay, my hands are placed together, and my right hand is pulling towards my belly button, just like this. And I'm also kind of observing what's happening to the bottom. So I'm taking a sponge and compressing that landscape on the bottom, taking some time to pop that bubble. If you see a bubble, just pop it. And I'm gonna pull this out just a hair more. And now we're gonna bring this up. So I'm gonna compress the bottom, just using my sponge and going back and forth. This is probably one of the most important parts of throwing, hand building, anything you're doing. Just compressing the clay. All right, so now we're gonna bring it up. I'm gonna work at 3 o'clock here. My left hand is kind of the force behind everything these first few turns. So I'm just gonna grab the clay, like just practice grabbing the clay like this and feel, you know, how powerful you can be with one hand, right? I'm gonna turn the speed down just a hair, and my left hand thumb is gonna be on the outside, and I'm gonna kind of roll my thumb up and over and move this clay inward like I'm climbing up a mountain. So let's do that really slowly. So I'm gonna press in right here with my thumb. I'm gonna press in with my middle finger and my kind of side-by-side fingers there, squeezing in and lifting the clay inwards and upwards. My right hand is just on the outside, kind of helping my thumb, just staying centered. And you can really get quite a big amount of movement that first pull, which is that little trick. So I'm gonna go ahead and I just get in a habit of compressing after each pull. And now we're gonna do that again. If yours got a little wonky, you can kind of collar and compress the lip. So collaring is just coming at the sides and coming in. Compressing the lip is just taking your left pointer finger and thumb, squeezing at the top and pushing down with your right pointer finger. So that's gonna center everything at the top. So let's do another pull. I'm gonna start right here at at 3 o'clock. My left hand is pushing out, my right hand is pushing in, and it's a slow walk up. My thumb is gonna be kind of active once I get about right here. But for the outside, my right hand is the majority of the pressure. So I'm squeezing in, my thumb is now involved, and I'm slowing down and walking up. Kind of like up a mountain, right? Equal pressure at a pace that is consistent, and I just float off when I get to the top.
So both the inside and outside have equal pressure? Not one is
Yeah. On this, kind of my outside hand has more pressure, right? Because I want to go in. So my outside hand is going to be a little bit more dominant. If my inside hand is more dominant, I'm going to get a bowl. And it also kind of matters, you know, how are you moving the clay up? Are you totally linked up like this? Or is your right hand a little under, which will kind of give you a bowl? Is your right hand slightly above your left hand, which will kind of help with getting that 45-degree up the mountain? So you're just kind of noticing all these tiny things going on with your hands and how it affects the clay. I'm gonna take this and collar it. So I'm just squeezing in at the bottom with significant pressure, right? I'm squeezing in with my palms, squeezing in and just sliding my hands upward. I'm gonna do that once more. You can do that with like this diamond shape like this if you want. So 4 points of contact, squeezing up and in. Add some water. If you feel any friction, just add water and move that consistently up to the top. Compress the lip. And now we'll do another pull. I'm gonna get rid of some of this clay just to make my life a little easier. So I'm just cutting into the bat and then sliding underneath, turning the wheel off. I'm just getting rid of a little bit of that clay. All right, let's do maybe 2 more pulls. So I want water on the inside and the outside. If you are sticking, right, you need to add more water. So I'm gonna start with my fingers on the inside pushing out, my fingers on the outside pushing in, and becoming a little bit more dominant and maybe sliding just slightly above my hand on the inside. So here I go, pressure in, taking a walk up, trying to remind myself to slow down and breathe, and maintaining that pressure all the way to the top. Gliding off, floating off like a butterfly. And so when I do like a larger pull like that, I'm thinking about how do I keep my hands like I'm on like a metal, like I'm a metal cage and I'm just moving on this like little chairlift to the top of the mountain, you know? I'm not gonna follow the wiggle. I'm trying to do everything to be the boss, right? I'm the boss. And that kind of helps. So add a little bit more water and we'll do 1 more pull and then we'll start to do some shaping. So do a little collar here. I'm just kind of seeing how all the walls are, where are my thin spots. I have a lot more clay down here, right? So I'm gonna take my time down here. It's a little bit uncomfortable, but this is where most of your clay hangs out, especially if it's like your first 2 or 3 years, right? So I'm gonna press in with my inside hand. I'm gonna press even harder with my outside hand. Lift that clay up and just go slow. And I'm slowly moving to the top. Put my thumb around the outside for a little extra stability. And glide off like a butterfly. Compress the lip on the top. And now we're gonna start shaping. This is a cool tool I just brought from home if you're doing like bottles or anything like that, but it can get down there when it gets a little thinner. Check your bottom if you need to compress it or get any puddles out. This is the time to do it. And now we're gonna start bringing this in right here. So this is called collaring, kind of what we've been doing the whole time. I'm just gonna start kind of halfway down, and I've got 4 points of contact, and I'm just gonna start to squeeze everything in. And I'm just adding some cute details. It will kind of look like a carafe, but you know, you can use it for water or flowers. So I'm gonna do this over multiple passages and just moving it slightly each time, right? So with each collar, it's gonna get thicker right here. And I can tell my clay is getting a little tired. It's got a little wobbly on the top. So I'm gonna mind my water and try not to incorporate too much more water. Take a step back, and now I'm kind of getting more exact with how I collar, and I'm kind of using my fingers and my thumbs, those 4 points, and I'm really squeezing in right here and floating off like a butterfly at the top.
How do you keep it from getting squatty?
Yeah, like not
getting squatty.
Like not getting as much height as you. Yeah. I would say just pulling is gonna, pulling 2.5 pounds is just gonna be harder than 1 pound. But if it does get squatty as you collar, you can always go ahead and do another pull, right? So this is so thick. So I'm just gonna take my finger, and my left hand is doing most of the work right now. I'm squeezing with my pointer finger and my thumb. And I'm pulling just from here where I can reach it, where the most of this clay is. So I'm feeling it's thick, so I'm squeezing a little harder where it's thick, and then I'm pulling that up, and I want to glide off like a butterfly. But yeah, feeling the dumpiness is hard. It's just like...
It also seems like starting with a wider base and not shaping the bottom.
Yeah.
Does that sound right? Because I think that's what you're wrong.
Yeah, maybe starting with a wider base. I think, and also just knowing your strengths, right? If you can pull a 10-inch cylinder, no problem. You can probably do this, but if you can't, you're just in practice mode of how to get that clay from the bottom to the top, which is the hardest part. But it just takes practice. Honestly, I think if you just breathe during this whole thing, you'll be good to go. So now I'm going to take my rib and just kind of get rid of all this slurry on the outside. This is just going to make your piece a little more vulnerable. So my hand's on the inside, kind of cradling that wall and giving my rib something to kind of push against. And then I'm going to go ahead and kind of bring this in a little bit more at the top. And water's going to be coming out of this, so I think I kind of want a little, well, water could come out of it, right? So I'm going to add a little spout. Sorry, this is a longer demo, but I'm almost done. So just getting rid of all that slurry. And you can see the design start to come alive already. This is when this stick is really great. Put it in there for any extra water. And now I'm just going to take my sponge, get rid of that excess water. Little red rib always gets lost. This is one of my favorites. It's the Mud Tools, the little red one. It's very bendy. It's really great for kind of finishing work, for compressing, because it is gentle, but it also just great at what it does. So I'm going to get this excess kind of slip off of the top of my piece, and you can see how dramatic that changed it. Turn this off, and now let's add a little spout. So I'm going to use some water for this, and I'm kind of like when I'm making a pie or something, I'm just going to kind of pull the spout with water. So I'm going to kind of hold my fingers right here. Sorry if I'm in your way. And just begin to kind of go back and forth like this. And, if you're going to do this, kind of remind yourself that you're making a spout, and you will need a little bit more clay at the top, right? That's usually where things tend to get a bit scarce and you kind of run out of clay. You can always add some clay. You can kind of pull it like this. You can do anything with wet clay. It's incredible, right? If you mess up, just try and fix it or make something else. So there's the carafe or vase. Next week I'm going to show you how to trim it. So if you do make something tall like this, feel free to wire it off. I will be showing you how to trim it standing up so you don't have to use a chuck if you don't want to. Bless you. But I'll show you a few ways to trim it, just tackling taller pieces. Does anyone have any questions?
Sorry, what's a chuck?
A chuck is that white kind of cylinder thing that's made out of clay that's been fired once, and it helps you trim taller things. I'm not a fan of them. Most people, I don't know. They are a tool if they work for you. Work with your strengths.